Hey, it's Kevin here and welcome back to the Recording in a Home Music Studio course. In this video, we're going to talk about comping. So comping, what the heck is comping? What a weird word. Right. Basically, what comping is us taking multiple takes of a vocal or an instrument, cutting it up into little bits or sections, whatever you choose, and then picking the best parts of all of those takes and merging them together to get the perfect take. Obviously, the perfect take is in quotes because there probably is no such thing as a perfect take, but it's the best take that we've got. Now, I don't know whether you consider that to be cheating or not, but it's pretty common practice through the recording industry all over that this is exactly what you do, right? It's obviously more common in vocals than it is with instruments, but there's no reason why you can't do it with instruments. I do it all the time, all right? I am not a perfect guitarist. So quite often, because I am doing instrumentals, I'm doing a fair bit of lead guitar work where I can, I will record multiple takes of lead guitar parts and I will cut them up and I will put the best bits together to create one final lead guitar part. And then, you know, you can always go back and learn to play it exactly like that and repeat over and over again. And if you feel that you want to re-record it as you playing it properly, you can do that. But there's no need to if you edit correctly. So most of the time, it's, you know, a lot of the time with comping, we're talking about vocals, all right? So let's talk about vocals, all right? Well, you know, why would you do it? Okay, so let's say you sing a song end to end, right, as an example. And it's just perfect, it's spot on. But you fudge one little word, one note, one sentence in the bridge. And you think, oh, damn, I've got to throw the whole thing away and start again, do the whole take again. Well, no, you don't. Why would you? Cut the bad part out and replace it with a good part. It's simple. Now, you can do it two ways. You can just re-record that little part, or you can take the advice I said earlier where you record multiple takes of the entire song, okay, and that can still be broken up into sections. You don't have to do it from start to finish. You can do verse, chorus, whatever, break it all up. You know, do 3 or 4 takes, whatever you believe you need to feel confident that you have got every part right and to your level of satisfaction, right? So this is your happiness with your takes. Then you can go through and do the comping process, which, as I said, I'll show you how it's done. You lay out the individual takes, they're all lined up in your song together, and you cut them up in appropriate sizes wherever you feel it's necessary to cut them. And then you go through and you pick the best take of every part. So like say part 1. All right, so let's say part 1 is verse 1. That's where you've cut it. We're going to listen to verse 1 of all of those 4 takes and we're going to pick the best one. Then we're going to go to the next section, which might be the chorus, first chorus. We're going to listen to each take of that first chorus recording. We're going to pick the best one. It could be on the same recording you pick the verse, but it could be a totally different one. We're just going to pick the best one. Then we're going to repeat for verse 2. Listen to all 4 takes, pick the best one, etc., etc. Go through. Eventually, you're going to have the whole song picked out, and then you're going to then merge all of those parts together to then create a new merged track of all the best takes as one audio file that is your vocal take. And then you're done. The rest of them can be thrown away or they can be kept for doubles or whatever else you want, because even though you pick the best one, the other ones may not be bad. They just may not be the best one. So it doesn't mean you have to throw them away. And even then, once you've done that part, you might find that, okay, well, this is the best take, but there is one word in here that just, it didn't quite go. So you might say, well, I'm just going to cut it again, smaller, and pick a word from one of the other takes and move it in, right? Your possibilities are endless. It's, you know, it's only bound by what you've recorded. So the more takes you record, the more options you've got. Now, I'm not suggesting you go and do 50 takes, because sitting down to review 50 takes and then pick every single part of all 50 takes is going to take you such a long time, and you are going to get so frustrated. The better approach and the quicker approach would be to sing multiple takes, and hopefully your last take will be your best one. And then that way you'll be confident that if you just review the last take, most of the parts are going to be good, and if you find any that you're not quite happy with, you can check the other takes to see, well, did I do it better with the other ones? So there are ways to speed up this process, but the process itself is just cutting multiple takes up and picking the best parts and stitching it all back together into one file. Now, depending on your software, this could be just a manual approach, which, you know, you may be just like I said, you just lay out the tracks, you cut them up, and you just use solo, mute, whatever, pick the parts, right? Or your software may actually have a proper comping facility that's specifically designed for this process. So I will show you sort of, I guess, a manual way to do it in Cubase, but I'll also show you their way of doing it, sort of using their comping process as well. So let's go and try it out now, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so we're over in Cubase now, and we're going to start with comping, I guess, the vocals, because that's the most obvious thing that we're going to do. Now, we've got 2 vocal tracks here, so we'll concentrate on one to start with, and hopefully this is not going to be too awkward, considering that I don't like listening to my own vocal. So you can see here, it's got sort of like various take numbers. Now, if we wanted to switch takes, we can actually right click and click to front and then pick a take to come on as the one we want to play. But the way I'm going to work is that I'm going to click on this show lanes button, and then we're going to get, well, basically all of these lanes. So this is all of our takes together. Now, we can pick any one of these entire takes. Now, what we want to do is, normally we would go to our hand control here, which is comp. And what that does is it puts the one we click on up to the top here, which is actually our, basically this is our end result. So this lane up the top, which says vocals, is that's our end result. That's what's going to play. That's what we want. And these are all of our options here. But what I want to do, we can see obviously here that the song is basically broken up into phrases. That's what I've done. So what I'm going to do is actually hold the Alt key down while I've got it, and I'm just going to cut it. And you'll see that it cuts every lane. And I'm going to do that between each section. Now, you could go down even finer if you wanted to. You could, you know, really zoom in and cut it any length you like. But I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. And cut each section there like that. Okay, now let's just zoom out a little bit. All right, and what I want to do is I also want to loop this chorus section here, and you can turn it on loop. That way you can play over and over again. And what we can do with our comp tool here is that we can click on any of these parts. And we can listen to whatever, we can choose which one we like, what we don't like, and we click on each of these little sections, and what that does is it then builds an entire track based on the best phrases out of this entire song. So we'll start off from the top, and how you listen to this is totally up to you. You could listen all the way through, you could listen to one phrase over and over again, It really depends on what you want to get out of this, and you can obviously solo it as well if you want to hear exactly what it sounds like. Now, you could also use some tuning plugins or something like that to tune your vocals first. I personally prefer to go through without tuning first so that I can pick the best ones without processing on it, right? Because if you can find ones that are in tune or closest to being in tune without using a plugin, then when you do go to use a plugin, if you choose to use a plugin later, it's going to be more accurate and it's going to be better because it's going to be a lot more subtle in its processing. If you do the tuning now, then you're really going to be hearing the effect of the tuning, and that's what you're going to be listening for. So I prefer to listen to the vocals raw. You could put some reverb on if you want to make it a little bit more comfortable for yourself, because this is going to be pretty dry. So we'll see what we do there. You might want to get a feel for what it sounds like with reverb or something like that, just to make it a little bit more comfortable to listen to. But let's go through it, we'll play it, and we'll start flicking between takes and see what we get or what we don't like. Actually, what I've done is I've just looped this very first phrase. We're going to do one phrase at a time. We'll just see how that feels. So we might turn it up. What you could do is narrow it down in your own head, or even write it down on a piece of paper if you so choose. So in my case here, I'll just flick through it again, but I have so far in my head said 3 and 5 are sounding better to me, but I'll run through them one more time. See, I don't like that. I really don't like that. It's not bad. So if we narrow it down to 2, we could flick between the 2. Now, trust me, this is a very painful experience, doing it like this. And if you're doing a whole song like this, I wouldn't suggest you break it down to these phrases. But then again, you know, maybe you do. You could break it down to half a chorus or something like that, or just play the whole thing through and see what you like. So I'm going to lock in take 3 for that one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick take 1. So I'm pressing 1 to switch over to the arrow key. If you can see up there, it says a 1 next to it. Unfortunately, the comp tool, they haven't given it a number. And then what I do is I actually press the letter P, and it creates a loop between it. And then if you press L, it actually jumps to the start of that loop. Now I put my comp tool again, and now we'll listen to the second phrase. To belong, 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 tossing between 2, 3, and 5. But what we might want to do in this case, if actually select both of these, create the loop over the 2, because you might want to hear how the second one gets added to the first one. So we want to belong. We want to belong. Sounds a bit weak. We want to belong. We want to belong. We want to belong. Okay, I'm going to go with 2 this time. Not 100% sure, but that's what we're going to go with. Now, again, we can continue with adding an extra section and just going through that way, or we could play each one in isolation. It's entirely up to you, and it's just going to depend on the process that you feel works the best. We want to belong. It's hard. Okay, that was bad. We want to belong. It's hard. We want to belong. It's hard. Okay, it's sort of getting a bit long. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'll do each part individually and I'll narrow it down to say 2 or 3 takes. If there's an option, like if they're all horrible and there's only one, then I'll pick one. And then what I'll do is I'll then come back and expand the playing to see which one of those options fit better. I think it's just going to be a faster approach than this because we're just playing this over and over again. Not really getting to where I want to go. So let's do that all again. So we'll just concentrate on this one. So these 2 here, I've still picked mine. That's fine. I've locked them in. And I'm just going to jot down each number of the take that I think is an option in each one of these parts. I've written down 10 parts and we'll pick a couple. Okay, so now what we need to do is narrow those last ones down. So part 3, we had 2 takes. So what I might do is I'll just keep it with 2 parts together instead of doing the whole thing. We'll obviously listen to the whole thing at the end just to check. All right, so we are going to switch 3 with 2 and 5. To belong, it's hard to belong, it's hard to belong, it's hard. Okay, I'm going with 2. All right, so now we will switch over to the next 2. And this one we had 3 options. We had 1, 3, and 4. So we'll start with 1. It's hard when you're gone. 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 Down to 1 and 4. It's hard when gone, it's hard when you're gone. It's hard when you're gone. I think I'm going to go with 1. It's a bit of a fine line, that one. Depending on who you are, you might have preferred 4. Somebody else prefers 1. You know, it's personal taste, really. Sometimes there's obvious ones that are just stand out, get rid of it, and then there's other ones that are not quite as obvious. Okay, so next part we've got 5 and 6. When you're gone, we need. 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 When I think we're going to have 6. It's not great, but 5 still had this little raspy sound in it, which I wasn't real keen on. Okay, let's go with, whoops. Let's go with the next one. Okay, next we have 3 and 4. We need to move on. 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 Okay, I think in this case 3 is better. It just has the same sort of texture as the bit before it, where it's a bit sort of softer and mellower. 4 I seem to have like really like attacked it a bit harder, which sometimes is the better option, but in this case I don't feel it is. Okay, now we've got options 2 and 5. To move on, some say. 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 I'm going to go with 5 on that one. Next one, we have 5 and 6. Some say, just be strong. Some say, just be strong. Yeah, see, 6, it's a totally different sound. Some say, just be strong. Makes it obvious that it's not cohesive. Say, just be strong. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of tuning that needs to happen definitely on that one. But I'm going to go with 5 because it matches better. This is why you need to check it together as well. Isolation, they can sound great, and then together they can be totally different. Now we've got 4 and 5 for this one. Just be strong. It's a game. 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 I think I'm going to have to go with 5 again for a similar reason. That it just sounds to be more similar. And lucky last, we got 1, 3, and 5. It's a game to play alone. 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 I don't like 1. It's a game to play alone. It started off good and it's a bit weak. It's a game to play alone. Now, in this case here, you could split the difference and you could actually take the first part of take 5 and add it to the second part of take 3. I'm not going to go to that level. I'm just going to go with take 3. Okay, now this, in theory, is our path. So we now select it all, and let's just have a listen to the whole thing. So it's going to play all of the parts that are highlighted, and these are the ones that I've chosen. So you can see up the top, take 3, 2, 2, 1, 6, 3, 5, 5, 5, 3. We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some say just be strong. It's a game to play alone. Okay, so it's not great, but it is what it is. I warned you in advance that I'm not a singer and it was never going to be good, but it's the best takes that we've got and the best parts that we've got. Okay, so once we've got our take down, we obviously want to save. Make sure we save in case we ever need to come back to this. Now, we could just hide the lanes and just leave it as is if we wanted to. But what we can also do is sort of come in here and we could just do some fades. So let's say we do a fade there. Going to do a fade in and out on each section. Now you can get Cubase to do this sort of stuff automatically, but since it's such a small part, I prefer to just do this manually myself, just to get it locked in. So we'll just do these fades. Okay, and we may actually, oh, okay, we've got to bring them all back. That's just part of the editing there, so we'll do our fade there. Okay, so let's just open up. Yep, so it's done the fades on the comps. It's just that when I dragged the top one across, it would have left all the others there, so I should have trimmed that first, but I didn't. Okay, so now as far as I know, what we could do is you could select all this and you could come here and you could go bounce selection. Now, if you do a bounce selection, it will basically override this and remove all of your lanes. So what I'm going to do instead though is I'm going to go render settings, and I'm going to go as one event. Okay, I'm going to change the mode. If I do it as separate events, what it will do, it'll render each one of these as a separate chopped up section like that. But I want to create one file. So I'm going to go as one And what it's going to do is it's going to render it. It's going to render all of those parts, put it on to a new track and one part, right? So that would have included the fades and everything. It's now muted that. We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. All right, but you can still see that we've still got our original here with all of our takes. So if we ever wanted to come back, we can. And what we could do is we could actually rename that to vocals original. It is obviously muted. Okay. This, we could just either call it vocals or we could call it vocal comp. All right. And then what I would most likely do, because once this is done, I don't really want to see it. Okay. So I'm going to actually disable the track. Right. And then I'll come across to my visibility tab here and I will untick it and then it's gone. But if we ever need it back, we can tick it again. We can enable the track again and we could unmute all of these tracks. Right. I mean, you could unmute them now if you wanted to and just have them unmuted, disable the track. It's still not going to play because it's disabled, and then hide it away. So now we just have our clean, comped vocal take here ready to use. Now in this case here, I'm going to mute it now. Now what we do is we do exactly the same process, but with the BGVs. All right, so now let's have a look at the BGVs. Right, we've got all of these takes. Now we did lots of different stuff here. Now you may need to have the main vocal playing, or you may want to keep it separate. Now, how are we going to break this up? I have no idea whatsoever. What we could do straight away is just go through each one totally and see if there's any we really want to just get rid of. All right, so let's start with take one. That's because I got away from the mic a lot. Okay, we need to boost the volume a bit. That is really low. That one's really low. I think it was because I moved away from the mic a bit to get a different sort of sound, but we still need the volume to be up a bit. Okay, I'll try that again. Didn't mean to switch it then. To belong, it's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Okay, so let's just say that's a possibility. We want to belong. That may be as well. Want, belong. Okay, so this is where you need the main vocal in. We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some say we want to belong. Okay, so if we definitely do not want to take in there, we can just absolutely remove it entirely. And the fourth option is gone, right? So just clean cut, bang, not even going to go there.
We want to belong, to belong. It's hard.
Okay, I don't even know what I'm doing there. So let's get rid of that one as well.
We want to belong. It's hard.
Okay, maybe weird.
We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some say.
Okay, I do not like that one either. Didn't do too well with the PGVs, did we?
We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need.
Okay, it was worth experimenting, but we just didn't do it. Okay, so what have we got? We've got basically two normals. This repeating one.
We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone.
Well, I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think that's going to work. So we've got this deep, weird one, and we've got, I guess, two sort of normal. Now, the volumes are just not matched at all there. This one needs to still come up a bit. Okay, we'll bring that up a little bit too.
We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some will say, just be strong. It's a game to play alone. We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some say, just be strong. It's a game to play alone. We want to belong. It's hard when you're gone. We need to move on. Some say, just be strong. It's a game to play alone.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to chop this end off first Because they're BGVs, I'm not going to be as over the top in worrying about this. Now, if I did a lot more takes and the BGVs were super critical to me and I was a professional vocalist, then I would probably do what I just did. But I would give myself a few options because I would want multiple tracks. Now, in this case here, these two parts, they were okay. Okay, I listened to them together with the main vocal. They sort of worked. This one here, it's a bit weird, but I'm just thinking maybe it gives us an option in mixing. So what I'm actually going to do is I am actually going to create tracks from lanes. All right, and what this is doing is obviously it's broken them all out. It has muted them. So we're going to unmute these two here. So instead of comping it into one track, what I've done is I've now created 3 individual tracks. So now we have 3 BGVs, 2 that are reasonably normal and 1 that's a little bit weird. And it's going to give us some options in mixing in regards to mixing in some BGVs. So instead of comping in this way, I've decided I'm not going to comp, I'm going to actually separate out. Now, because we've separated them out as is, we could, in theory, just delete this top one here, which I will do. And then what we can do is just rename these to whatever we actually prefer them to be. And
We want to belong. It's hard.
so we've got all these vocal parts now, okay? So that's our main vocal. There's our BGVs, 3 of them. They're comped together. Let's now go and let me just check the volume. That's all right. They're all set to 0 for the moment. We'll move them into a folder. We'll call it vocals. Give it a color. I might actually change that to Vox as opposed to vocals. Just, you know, I don't know. It makes more sense to me. All right, we can collapse that down. So all our vocals are now in this part. Obviously, we only did 1 chorus because that was not really my focus. And we're ready to go. So we've basically got all that comped and that sort of stuff. What we'll do now is we'll have another look at a way of doing comping, which is to do with lead guitar. So we'll just do a quick demonstration of that because it's not just vocals. You can do this process for anything, basically. So let's check that out now.